The final trial was called the Crucible, and everyone knew what that meant. It was a fight to the death. Only one team would leave the arena alive. The arena had been transformed into a massive sphere with walls that could move and change. The gravity could shift in any direction. The floor could become the ceiling without warning. There were no rules except one: fight until only one team remains. 4 teams stood at different points around the sphere. The Korthok Dominion had natural armor that could stop bullets and claws that could cut through steel. They had won the last 4 tournaments and had never lost a single team member. Their leader, War Chief Brutus, stood 8 feet tall and had killed more opponents than any other fighter in the galaxy. The Synthesis Collective were part machine and part living creature. They could share thoughts instantly and coordinate their attacks perfectly.
Oh.
Their bodies could repair damage automatically, and they had weapons built into their arms and chest. They moved like one mind controlling 5 bodies. The void touched. Looked like shadows given form. They could drain the life energy from their enemies and use it to make themselves stronger. They could become invisible, walk through walls, and attack from any direction. Many fighters had died without ever seeing what killed them. Then there were the humans. They had no natural armor, no built-in weapons, no special powers. They were smaller and weaker than every other team. But they had something that none of the other teams possessed. They had learned to fight together as one unit. While keeping their individual creativity and intelligence, the battle began without warning. The Korthok immediately charged at the void touched, roaring battle cries that shook the arena walls. The Synthesis Collective spread out in perfect formation. Their mechanical parts worry as they prepared to attack from multiple angles. The humans did something different. They found each other in the chaos and formed a defensive circle. Alex called out orders while watching all 3 enemy teams at once. Ben, high position. Maria, mobile defense. Kelly, find us an advantage, Steve. Keep everyone alive. Real fight was between the Korthok and the void touched. War Chief Brutus swung his massive claws at shadows that weren't there, while the void touched drained energy from his team members. It was a battle between pure physical strength and supernatural power. The Synthesis Collective tried to attack the humans while the other teams were fighting each other. Their coordinated assaults should have overwhelmed the smaller human team. But the humans had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. When the machine creatures attacked, Ben put 3 precise shots into their leader's optical sensors, blinding the shared consciousness that controlled them all. Maria used her speed and agility to stay between their attacks, never letting them surround her. Kelly used the moving walls and shifting gravity to her advantage, tricking the machines into attacking spaces where she wows, and single quotes that he had been saving since the first trial. The explosions didn't destroy the machine creatures, but they separated them and disrupted their perfect coordination. Steve used his medical knowledge to identify the biological parts of their enemies and find ways to damage them. The battle raged for hours. The arena walls moved constantly, sometimes putting enemies right next to each other, sometimes separating them by hundreds of feet. The gravity shifted from the floor to the walls to the ceiling, making it impossible to predict which way was up. One by one, fighters began to fall. The void touched eliminated 2 members of the Korthok team by draining all their energy. The Synthesis Collective lost 3 members to the combined attacks of the humans and Korthok. War Chief Brutus killed the leader of the void touched with his bare hands, but died when the creature's death released all the energy it had been storing. As the battle continued, something became clear to everyone watching. The humans weren't just surviving because they were lucky. They were winning because they fought differently than everyone else. The other teams fought like individuals who happened to be working together. The humans fought like fingers on the same hand. When Ben needed a better shooting position, Kelly was already moving to give him one. When Maria was outnumbered, Alex was throwing explosives to even the odds. When Steve was treating wounds, the others automatically covered him without being asked. The final confrontation came down to the humans versus the last 2 Korthok warriors. These weren't just any Korthok. They were the brothers of War Chief Brutus. They were filled with rage over his death. The 2 Korthoks were bigger, stronger and more experienced than all 5 humans combined. Their natural armor could stop human weapons, and their claws could kill with a single strike. In a straight fight, there was no way the humans could win, so they didn't fight. Straight Alex used the arena's shifting gravity to drop one of the Korthok into a wall at high speed. When the creature tried to get up, Ben put a bullet through the gap in its armor at the base of its neck. Maria distracted the second Korthok, while Kelly rigged an explosive trap using parts from the destroyed Synthesis Collective. But it was Steve who delivered the killing blow. While the last Korthok was focused on Maria, the combat medic used his knowledge of alien biology to inject poison directly into the creature's bloodstream. The Korthok warrior died not knowing what had killed him. Suddenly the arena was quiet. The 5 humans stood alone among the bodies of the galaxy's greatest fighters. They had won the Vorthan Death Games. The alien spectators sat in complete silence. No one cheered. No one made a sound. They were trying to understand what they had. Just witness .HiveMind Zeked H slowly descended to the arena floor. His voice was different now, filled with something that might have been fear. The Vorthon Death Games have concluded. Humanity is declared the victor. The implications of what had just happened began to spread through the alien crowds. Species that had been dismissed as weak and primitive had just defeated the strongest fighters in the galaxy. The humans hadn't just won, they'd dominated. Alex looked up at the thousands of alien faces staring down at them. We came here because you invited us. You thought we would die quickly and quietly. You thought we would prove that humans don't belong in your galaxy. He paused, looking at each of his teammates. They were wounded and exhausted, but they were alive. They had done something that no new species had ever done before. You were wrong, Alex continued. We don't belong in your galaxy. Your galaxy belongs to us now. The alien spectators began to leave the arena. Some were angry, others were frightened. All of them were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had invited humanity to prove themselves in the deadliest competition in known space. They had expected to watch the humans fail and die. Instead, they had given the most dangerous species in the galaxy a chance to announce their arrival. Over the following months, the news of humanity's victory spread to every world in the galaxy. Some species tried to prepare for war, thinking the humans would use their victory to conquer other planets. Others tried to make peace, hoping to avoid the fate of the tournament fighters. But the humans did something that surprised everyone. Again, they didn't conquer. They didn't threaten. They simply continued to exist, to explore, to grow stronger. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's entry into the Death Games. Now they understood that the laughter had stopped forever. The age of human expansion had begun, and every species in the galaxy would have to live with the consequences of underestimating the creatures from the small. Blue Planet, the humans had proven that they didn't need claws or armor or special powers. To be dangerous, they just needed each other, and the determination to never give up, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The galaxy would never make the mistake of laughing at humanity again. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the middle of his ship's control room, looking at something that made his hands shake. A blue light was floating in the air in front of him, showing words in a language he had never seen before. But somehow he could understand every word. "Captain," said Commander Lisa Hart as she walked up behind him. "What is that thing?" Jake turned to look at her. Lisa had been his friend for 10 years. She was smart and brave, and right now she looked worried. "It's a message from the Galactic Council," he said. "They want us to join something called the Vorthon Death Games." The other people on the ship's bridge came closer to listen. Ryan Brooks was their weapons expert. He was young but very good at his job. Katie Wells took care of the ship's engines. She could fix anything that was broken. Danny Chen talked to other ships and planets. He spoke many different languages. "Games?" Katie asked. "That doesn't sound good." Jake read the message out loud. The words were simple, but scary. Every 50 years, the strongest fighters in the galaxy come together for the ultimate test. It's only the best survive. Only the winners get respect. Humanity has been chosen to send a team, Danae was typing on his computer. Captain, I'm looking up information about these games. It's not good news. His face was pale. No new species has ever won. Most don't even survive the first challenge. Lisa crossed her arms. How many teams usually compete? About 60 teams, Danny said. Each team has 5 people. The games have 5 different tests. If you fail any test, your whole team dies. Ryan whistled. That's brutal. Why would anyone want to join? Jake was still reading the message. Because the winners get something special. You get respect from every other species in the galaxy. You get to join the Galactic Council as equals, not as newcomers. For 3 years, humans had been trying. To make friends with alien species, it was not going well. The tall, blue-skinned Zephyrians called humans weak meat creatures. The Brutok Empire, who looked like giant lizards, said humans were barely smart enough to use tools. Every alien species they met treated humans like children or pets. Katie shook her head. This has to be a trap. They want us to join, so they can watch us die? Probably, Jake agreed. But think about it. What if we don't die? What if we actually win? That's impossible, Ryan said. We don't have the technology these other species have. Don't have natural armor or claws or the ability to breathe fire. Jake walked over to the big window at the front of the control room. Outside, he could see Earth getting smaller as their ship moved away from it. He had grown up on that planet. So had everyone else on his ship. Earth was a hard place to live. There were storms and earthquakes and diseases. There were wars and famines and ice ages. But humans kept surviving. They kept fighting. They kept getting stronger. You're right, Jake said. We don't have armor or claws, but we have something else. We have experience. Lisa walked over to stand next to him. What do you mean? Think about human history, Jake said. We've been fighting for survival since the day we learned to walk. Every disaster, every war, every challenge made us tougher. These alien species have been living in peace for thousands of years. They've had easy lives with advanced technology. But we've had to earn everything we have. Danny was still reading about the games on his computer. Captain, the current champions are called the Korthawk Dominion. They're 8 feet tall with natural armor and razor-sharp claws. They've won the last 4 tournaments without losing a single team member. What about the others? Jake asked. The Void Touched can control energy with their minds. The Synthesis. Collective are part machine, part living creature. The Crystal Shapers can turn their bodies into living diamond. Every species that competes has some kind of natural advantage. Katie laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. And what's our natural advantage? We're good at dying? Jake turned around to face his crew. These people had been with him through dangerous missions to other planets. It survived attacks by space pirates. They had fixed their ship when it was falling apart in the middle of nowhere. They never gave up, no matter how bad things got. Our advantage is that we don't know how to quit, Jake said. Every other species in the galaxy thinks. They're better than us. They think we're weak because we don't have scales or extra arms or the ability to see in the dark. But they're wrong. Ryan was looking interested now. How are they wrong? They've never had to fight for everything they have. They've never had to survive when everything was against them. Earth made us strong by being cruel to us. Every human alive today is the descendant of someone who refused to die when dying would have been easier. Lisa was nodding slowly. You want to accept the invitation? I think we have to, Jake said. If we say no, they'll never respect us. They'll always think we're cowards. But if we say yes and somehow manage to survive, everything changes. Danny closed his computer. The games are held on a planet called Vorthon Prime. It's a desert world with active volcanoes. The arena is built into the side of a volcano. Of course it is, Kitty said. Why would they make it easy? Jake was making his decision. He could feel it in his bones. And this was dangerous. This was probably stupid. But this was also their chance to prove that humans belonged in the galaxy as equals, not as the weak newcomers everyone thought they were. I'm going to accept, he said. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Lisa stepped forward. If you're accepting, then I'm going with you. Me too, said Ryan. Count me in, said Katie. Danny grinned. Someone has to keep you all alive. I'm in. Jake looked at each of them. These weren't the strongest humans alive. They weren't the smartest or the fastest. But they were his crew, and he trusted them with his life. Maybe that would be enough. He touched the blue light floating in the air. This is Captain Jake Morrison, of the Human Vessel Defender. We accept your invitation to the Vorthen Death Games. Humanity will send a team. The light flashed once and disappeared. In 3 months, they would travel to Vorthen Prime. In 3 months, they would either prove that humans deserved respect, or they would die trying. Jake thought about all the humans who had died fighting for their species over thousands of years. They had died in wars and disasters and diseases, but they had never died quietly. They had always fought until the very end. Now it was his turn to fight for humanity. The aliens were expecting humans to fail quickly and quietly. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 3 months passed quickly on Earth. News of the tournament spread around the world like wildfire. Some people said Captain Morrison was crazy, others said he was brave. Everyone agreed that the 5 humans who went to fight would probably die. General Patricia Williams sat in a big meeting room in Washington, D.C. Around the table were the best military leaders from every country on Earth. They had one job: pick the 5 humans who had the best chance of surviving the death games. We need people who can think fast and adapt to anything, General Williams said. We're not looking for the biggest or strongest. We need smart fighters who never give up. The first person they chose was Alex Turner. He had been a Navy SEAL. For 12 years, Alex had fought in wars in the desert, in the jungle, and in the mountains. He knew how to make bombs and how to survive when everything went wrong. He was 32 years old and had never failed a mission. The second choice was Maria Rodriguez. She was the best mixed martial arts fighter in the world. Maria had won championships in boxing, wrestling, and martial arts. She was fast, strong, and could think clearly even when people were trying to hurt her. More importantly, she had grown up poor and had to fight for everything she ever got. The third team member was Ben Parker. He had been an Army Ranger sniper for 10 years. Ben could hit a target from 2 miles away. He was patient and calm, even in the most dangerous situations. He had served in Special Forces missions that were so secret that most people didn't even know they happened. Kelly Johnson was the fourth choice. She was an aerospace engineer who had also been an astronaut. Kelly had spent 6 months on the space station and had walked in space many times. She was smart enough to understand alien technology and brave enough to go places where no human had ever been before. The last team member was Steve Adams. He was a combat medic who had saved hundreds of lives in war zones. Steve could perform surgery while bombs were exploding around him. He could keep people alive when they should have died. Every soldier who had ever worked with him said the same thing. Steve Adams never let anyone die on his watch. These 5 people had never worked together before, but they had something in common. They had all volunteered for the most dangerous jobs their species had to offer. They were used to being afraid and doing their job anyway. For 2 months, they trained together at a secret military base. They learned to work as a team. They studied everything humans knew about alien species and alien technology. They practiced fighting in different types of environments. They prepared for every situation they could think of, but everyone knew they were probably going to die. On the day they left Earth, millions of people watched on television. The 5 team members walked up the ramp into their spaceship, the Columbus. They looked calm, but inside they were all scared. They were about to travel to a world where the strongest fighters in the galaxy came to kill each other. The trip to Vorthen Prime took 2 weeks. During the journey, the team members got to know each other better. Alex told stories about his military missions. Maria talked about growing up in a tough neighborhood where you had to be strong to survive. Ben was quiet most of the time, but when he spoke, everyone listened. Kelly explained how space travel worked and what they might expect on an alien world. Steve made sure everyone stayed healthy and ready to fight. When they finally arrived at Vorthen Prime, they understood why the tournament was held there. The planet was covered in red sand and black rocks. Huge volcanoes shot fire and smoke into the sky. The air was hot and thick, and it was hard to breathe. This was not a place where anything was supposed to live, but somehow it did. The arena was the most frightening thing any of them had ever seen. It was carved into the side of an active volcano. The walls were black rock, and lava flowed in rivers around the outside. The arena was so big that it could hold 100,000 spectators. Most of those spectators were aliens who had come to watch the tournament. As the Columbus landed, the humans could see other ships arriving. Some of the ships were bigger than buildings. Others looked like they were made of living metal. A few seemed to be made of pure energy. The ship carried a team of 5 fighters from a different species. The human team walked out of their ship and onto the landing platform. Immediately, they could hear the alien spectators laughing and making jokes. The aliens had never seen humans before, but they thought the humans looked weak and soft. "Look at those tiny creatures," said a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "They have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. How did they even get here?" "Maybe they got lost," said another voice that sounded like wind whistling through caves. "This is a tournament for warriors, not for pets." The laughter got louder. Some aliens were taking pictures of the humans like they were looking at animals. In a zoo, others were making bets on how quickly the humans would be eliminated. The odds were 10,000 to 1 against humanity surviving even the first trial. A creature that looked like a giant insect with too many legs approached the human team. It stood 12 feet tall and had a voice that sounded like 1,000 bees buzzing at once. "I am Hivemind, Zeke H., representative of the Galactic Council. Welcome to the Vorthan Death Games." The creature's many eyes looked down at the humans with what might have been amusement. "You are smaller than we expected. Are you certain you are the correct species? Perhaps there has been a mistake." Alex stepped forward. He was the team leader. "No mistake. We're here to compete." "How interesting," Zeke said. "Let me explain the rules, though I suspect you will not live long enough for them to matter. There are 5 trials. Each trial tests different skills: survival, combat, strategy, endurance, and teamwork. Any team that fails a trial is eliminated." "Permanently? Permanently?" Kelly asked. "You die," Zeke said simply. "That is what makes the games exciting for the spectators. They enjoy watching inferior species discover their limitations." Steve looked around at the other teams. Some of the alien fighters were twice as tall as humans. Others had extra arms or legs, and he had natural weapons like claws, fangs, or spikes. A few seemed to be made of living rock or metal. "How many teams usually survive all 5 trials?" Ben asked. "1," Zeke replied. "Only the champions survive. Everyone else dies trying to become champions." Maria cracked her knuckles. "Sounds fair to us." The insect creature made a sound that might have been laughter. "You will begin tomorrow at dawn. I suggest you spend tonight preparing your final messages to your home world. Your species will want to know how you died." Zekte walked away. The human team looked at each other. Around them, the alien spectators continued laughing and joking about the weak humans who thought they could compete with real warriors. "Well," Alex said quietly, "at least we know what we're up against." "Everything," Kelly replied. Maria said with a grin. "I was worried this might be too easy." The 5 humans walked toward the area where the competing teams were staying. They could feel thousands of alien eyes watching them, waiting for them to show fear or weakness. But the humans had made it this far by never showing their enemies what they were really thinking. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. Tomorrow, they would start proving that the galaxy had made a very big mistake when they decided to laugh at humanity. The first trial began at sunrise. The arena was filled with thousands of alien spectators, all eager to watch the weak humans die quickly. 63 teams stood at the entrance to what was called the Labyrinth of Echoing Death. It was a massive, underground maze carved into the volcano itself. Hivemind Zeke explained the rules to all the teams. Inside the labyrinth are traps, deadly creatures, and paths that lead nowhere. You must reach the center and retrieve a crystal marker. The first 30 teams to succeed will advance to the second trial, The rest will die in the maze. Alex looked at his team. They had studied maps of similar mazes during their training on Earth. Remember, he whispered, "We don't need to be the fastest. We just need to be smart." The entrance doors opened with a loud grinding sound. Most of the alien teams charged into the maze, using their natural strength to smash through walls or their advanced technology to blast their way forward. The humans did something different. They stopped just inside the entrance and listened. "What are you doing?" Ben asked. Alex was tapping on the walls and listening to the echoes. Every maze has a pattern. Sound travels differently through solid rock and empty space. "Give me a minute." While Alex mapped the safe passages using sound, Maria used her agility to climb up the walls and scout ahead. She could see over some of the shorter walls and spot the traps that were waiting for unwary teams. Kelly used her engineering knowledge to identify which passages had been carved recently and which were older. The newer passages were more likely to have traps. They could hear other teams fighting and dying deeper in the maze. Roars of pain and the sound of energy weapons echoed through the tunnels. Some teams were already being eliminated. "This way," Alex said, pointing down a narrow passage that looked like it hadn't been used in years. They moved carefully through the maze, avoiding the obvious paths that other teams were taking. When they encountered traps, they worked together to get past them. Steve used his medical knowledge to identify poisonous plants. Ben's sharp eyes spotted hidden pressure plates. Kelly figured out how the mechanical traps worked and found ways to disable them. After 2 hours of careful progress, they heard a sound that made them all freeze. It was a deep, rumbling growl that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The maze's guardian had found them. The creature that came around the corner was like nothing they had ever seen. It was as big as a truck, with tentacles instead of legs, and a mouth full of teeth like swords. Its skin was covered in acid that burned holes in the stone floor. This was the beast that had killed dozens of previous competitors. Most teams would have run or tried to fight it with brute force. The humans did neither. They had a plan. "Ben, aim for the eyes," Alex shouted. Maria, "Distract it from the left." "Kelly, I need an explosion right there." He pointed to a weak spot in the ceiling above the creature. Ben's rifle cracked 3 times in quick succession. Its bullets hit the monster's eyes, blinding it and making it thrash around wildly.
Maria
ran at the creature from one side, drawing its attention while staying just out of reach of its tentacles. Kelly used the explosive charges Alex had taught her to make and placed them exactly where he had pointed. The explosion brought down part of the ceiling onto the creature, pinning it under tons of rock. The Guardian wasn't dead, but it couldn't chase them anymore. They reached the center of the maze and grabbed their crystal marker. As they ran toward the exit, they could see that only 15 other teams had made it out alive. The alien spectators were completely silent. No one had expected the humans to not only survive, but to do it so quickly and efficiently. The second trial was called the Burning Peaks. The teams had to cross a series of volcanic mountains while being hunted by flying predators that breathed fire. The heat was so intense that several alien teams collapsed before they even started climbing. The humans had an advantage here that none of the other species expected. They had trained for this kind of environment. Steve had taught them how to conserve water and energy in extreme heat. Alex knew how to find shelter and plan routes that used the least energy. Ben could spot the flying predators from miles away, but their biggest advantage was something simpler. They helped each other. When Kelly started to suffer from heat exhaustion, Maria and Steve carried her gear. When Ben twisted his ankle on loose rocks, Alex and Kelly helped him walk. They moved as one unit, covering each other's weaknesses. The alien teams didn't do this. Most alien species were naturally stronger and tougher than humans, but they were used to relying on individual strength. When one team member fell behind, the others often left them to die rather, and slowed down the whole group. The humans reached the top of the final peak as the sun was setting. Only 24 teams had survived the second trial. The betting odds on humanity had changed from 10,000 to 1 against to only 50 to 1 against. Some aliens were starting to take the humans seriously. The third trial took place the next day in an underwater cavern system. It was called the depths of frozen darkness. The water was so cold that it could kill within minutes, and the caverns were filled with creatures that attacked anything that moved. This trial separated the smart teams from the strong ones. Brute force was useless underwater. Technology could fail in the cold water, so only teamwork and intelligence would keep a team alive. The humans had planned for this too. Kelly had designed simple breathing devices using materials from their ship. Steve knew how to prevent hypothermia and recognize its early signs. Alex had studied underwater cave systems and knew how to navigate without getting lost. Ben and Maria were both strong swimmers who could handle the physical demands, but more importantly, they had learned to trust each other completely. When Ben got separated from the group in the dark water, the others didn't panic. They used a system of tapping on rocks to signal to each other and found him within minutes. When a massive eel-like creature attacked Maria, the whole team worked together to drive it off without anyone getting seriously hurt by the time they emerged from the underwater caves. Only 16 teams remained. Humans were exhausted, cold and scared, but they were alive. More importantly, they had proven something that shocked every alien watching. They had shown that humans didn't just survive by being lucky. They survived by being smart, by working together, and by never giving up, even when everything seemed impossible. The alien spectators were no longer laughing. Some were placing bets on the humans to win. Others were studying human tactics and trying to figure out how such a physically weak species could be so effective in combat situations. Hive mind. Zeke watched the humans from his observation platform. For the first time in his long life, he was beginning to understand that the Galactic Council might have made a serious mistake. These creatures weren't just surviving the trials, they were excelling at them. The humans sat around a small fire. In their quarters that night, treating their wounds and preparing for whatever came next, they didn't talk much. They were all thinking the same thing. They had made it farther than anyone expected, including themselves. But the hardest trials were still ahead, and the competition was getting deadlier with each round. The teams that remained were the best, fighters in the galaxy. Tomorrow would test whether human determination and teamwork could overcome opponents who had every natural advantage. Alex looked at his teammates. They were battered and tired, but their eyes still held the fire that had brought them this far. 2 more trials, he said quietly. 2 more chances to show them what humans can do, Maria replied. They had come to Vorthon Prime expecting to die fighting. Now they were starting to believe they might actually have a chance to win. The 4th trial was different from the others. Instead of fighting monsters or surviving dangerous environments, the teams faced something much worse, their own minds. The trial was called the Mind of War. Each team was placed in a separate chamber. Inside the arena, the chambers looked like simple metal rooms, but they were designed to break the spirit of even the strongest warriors. Advanced alien technology would force each team to face their worst fears and most painful memories while solving complex puzzles and tactical problems. Hivemind Zeke explained the rules to the 16 remaining teams. This trial tests your mental strength, not your physical abilities. You will face challenges that attack your mind and your will to fight. Many teams have gone insane during this trial. Others have simply given up and asked to die rather than continue. The alien spectators were excited. This was the trial that usually eliminated the most teams. Even the strongest warriors could be broken if you attacked their minds instead of their bodies. The humans were led into their chamber. The door sealed shut behind them with a sound like a tomb closing. For a moment, everything was quiet and dark. Then the trial began. The walls of the chamber disappeared, and suddenly the 5 humans were standing in different places. Alex found himself back in Afghanistan, watching his best friend die in an explosion he couldn't prevent. Maria was in the boxing ring, where she had lost her first professional fight and thought her career was over. Ben was reliving the mission where his sniper shot had missed. And good soldiers had died because of his mistake. Kelly was floating in space outside the space station, watching her fellow astronaut drift away after his safety line broke. Steve was in a field hospital trying to save the life of a young soldier while bombs exploded all around them. He had failed that day, and the boy had died in his arms. These were the moments that haunted each of them. The alien technology was designed to break them by forcing them to experience their failures over and over again. Most species would crack under this kind of pressure. The aliens expected the humans to collapse, to beg for mercy, to give up. But something unexpected happened. Instead of being broken by these memories, the humans began to draw strength from them. Alex remembered his friend's death, but he also remembered what he had learned from it. That failure had taught him to be more careful, to think before acting, to never take unnecessary risks with other people's lives. The pain of losing his friend had made him a better leader. Maria remembered her first loss. She also remembered how she had used that defeat to train harder and become stronger. She had learned that losing wasn't the end of the world. It was just information about what she needed to improve. Ben remembered his missed shot, but he also remembered the thousands of shots he had made since then. That one failure had taught him to be more patient, to breathe properly, to never rush when lives depended on his accuracy. Kelly remembered watching her fellow astronaut die, but she also remembered how that tragedy had led to new safety procedures that had saved dozens of other astronauts. His death had meaning because it had prevented other deaths. Steve remembered the young soldier he couldn't save, but he also remembered the hundreds of soldiers he had saved after that day. That failure had driven him to study harder, to practice more, to become the best combat medic in the army. The alien technology tried to break them with visions of Earth's wars, its famines, and disasters. It showed them cities burning, people dying, civilizations falling, but instead of being horrified, the humans saw something else. They saw a species that had survived every catastrophe and become stronger because of it. While the visions played, around them, tactical problems appeared in the air. Mathematical puzzles that tested their ability to think under pressure. Strategic scenarios that required them to make life-or-death decisions quickly. The alien technology expected them to fail because they were too distracted by their fears. But the humans had learned something that the aliens didn't understand. They had learned that fear and pain could be tools instead of weaknesses. Every human alive was descended from people who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. Every disaster in human history had been survived by people who turned their fear into determination. Alex solved the tactical problems by remembering every military lesson he had learned from his failures. Maria used her experience with defeat to find creative solutions to the strategic puzzles. Ben's patience, learned from his mistakes, helped him think through the complex mathematical problems. Kelly used her knowledge of disasters to predict the patterns in the alien tests. Steve's experience with hopeless medical situations taught him to stay calm when everything seemed impossible. They worked together, sharing their knowledge and supporting each other when the visions became too painful to bear alone. The alien technology had never encountered a species that could turn trauma into strength, that could use their worst experiences as learning tools. In the other chambers, alien teams were breaking down. The Korthok Dominion, the defending champions, were roaring in fury as they relived their rare defeats. The Synthesis Collective were shutting down their mechanical parts to escape the psychological torture. The Void Touched were trying to drain energy from the walls to break free from the mental prison. But the humans kept working, kept solving problems, kept moving forward. They didn't try to escape the visions. They embraced them, learned from them, and used them to become more focused and determined. After 6 hours, the trial ended. The chambers opened and the teams stumbled out into the arena. Only 4 teams remained: the Korthok Dominion, the Synthesis Collective, the Void Touched, and humanity. The alien spectators were completely silent. They had never seen anything like what the humans had just done. Other species tried to be strong by avoiding pain and fear. Humans became strong by facing pain and fear directly. Hivemind Zeke stared at the humans with all of his compound eyes. "How?" he asked. "Did you turn your species' greatest weakness into strength?" Alex looked up at the giant insect creature. What weakness? Your fragility, your short lives, your lack of natural weapons or armor, your history of constant warfare and disaster. Those aren't weaknesses, Maria said. Those are the things that made us strong. Kelly stepped forward. Every other species in the galaxy has had easy lives, advanced technology, peaceful societies, natural advantages. You've never had to fight for survival. We've been fighting for survival since the day we learned to walk, Ben added. Every war, every plague, every disaster was a test. The humans who survived those tests became our ancestors. Dave nodded. You think we're weak because we don't have claws or armor? But we're strong because we've learned to survive without them. We're strong because we've learned to work together when everything is against us. The alien spectators began to murmur among themselves. Some were excited. Others were frightened. They were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had invited humanity to the death games, expecting to see a weak species humiliate itself before dying. Instead, they had given the most dangerous species in the galaxy a chance to prove exactly how dangerous they really were. The humans weren't just surviving the tournament. They were dominating it. And they were doing it by using the very qualities that the aliens had thought made them weak. The Galactic Council. Members held emergency meetings that night. Some wanted to stop the tournament before the humans could win. Others argued that the ancient laws governing the death games couldn't be changed. The competition would continue to its conclusion, but everyone agreed on one thing. They had awakened. Something that might have been better left sleeping. The humans had shown that they didn't just adapt to adversity, they grew stronger because of it. The final trial would determine who ruled the galaxy's deadliest tournament. The aliens had been so busy laughing at the humans that they hadn't noticed the most important thing about them. Humans didn't just survive disasters, they learned from them. And now they were about to teach the galaxy a lesson that would never be forgotten. The age of human expansion was about to begin. The other species were starting to realize. They had created their own greatest threat by giving humanity a stage to prove what they were truly capable of achieving.